Illuminati, you'll never take control. Your new world order will lead to none at all. I think I'm entitled.
You want answers!
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Hey, before we proceed on to segment 3, I want to kind of go over just a little bit on segment 2 and prove a point with an example here. You know, I noticed some comments about your convictions of, you know, your religion, and you feel sad for me because I don't see the truth, I don't see the light, and I don't have God in my heart. Or, you know, all I can tell you is that I have been where you have been. And when I removed myself from mainstream media, when I removed myself from religion to do my own research to see what the truth was, and I know that you feel that, you know, Jesus is in your heart, and that's fine, I'm okay with that. But I want to prove a point to you here. Ask yourself these questions. What you see before you here is before this moment was a undiscovered tribe. This was filmed in the 1970s. And ask yourself, how is it that you know who Jesus is and you know who God is, but these tribal people right here, they had no concept of who God was or who Jesus was? It's probably for the exact opposite reasons of why they don't and you do. Is because you had to be taught who Jesus was. If that weren't true, there would have been no need for missionaries, Christian missionaries, to go and seek out these undiscovered tribes and to teach them who Jesus was, because Jesus would have found them on his own. See, but that's not the case. But since you have Jesus in your heart and you've been taught this, you've been taught what to believe, all I offer to you is maybe that you step back and see, did they have a reason to lie to you about who he was, about who your God is that you know as God? And that's the only thing that I offer up. Now, hold on a second here. First, you have to take a look at, did they have a reason to lie to you about who he was? And did they go about being, nefarious in this whole teaching of God and Jesus? Well, ask yourself, and look at the book of Jude, for instance, in the New Testament, and you see that Jude, he quotes from the book of Enoch. It's a matter of word for word. And the angels left their abode, and you can see further on down the line through that whole quotation that it did in fact come from the book of Enoch. The book of Enoch does exist, but yet it was not included in the Bible. There were certain councils by the early church fathers, St. Jerome, Augustine of Hippo, Irenaeus, Athanasius, who conspired amongst each other, amongst other early church fathers who I can't remember their names. I just remember those off the top of my head. They conspired to keep books out of the Bible because they didn't want you to know the truth. They didn't want you to know everything about who he really was. I'm about ready to share some of that with you just a little bit. But also there's other books that you will find very interesting that do in fact exist from the Old Testament, but were not included. You can see mention of the book of the Wars of the Lord is mentioned in the Old Testament, yet it is not there. You see that the book of Jasher is mentioned. It is not there, but it does exist, and you can read it for yourself and find out why it was not included. The book of Jubilees can be found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but yet it does not find its way into the Bible. If you read these books, then you will know why they were not meant to be included. And I want to prove also another point to you here about who the God of the Old Testament was. And I'm going to go about trying to set out to prove it to you here. As I already pointed out, there were many similarities between the Sumerian god, Sumerian, Enki, and the Akkadian, Ea. They're both the one and the same. Now, as you can see, they were depicted. He sits on a throne decorated with pots which flow two streams of water. Same thing with Yahweh. The myth of Adapa in the Sumerian tablets and the story of Genesis are one and the same. The Tower of Babel, which I've already showed you, they are one and the same. The Epic of Gilgamesh story and the Atrahasis story, Ziusudra, right here, they're one and the same with the biblical story. So, is Yahweh in fact Ea? And this is how I want to set out to prove it. One, I've already showed you that Ea was in fact the serpent in the Garden of Eden. He saved, not only did he provide the fruit to open the eyes to become knowing in the Garden of Eden, but also that same individual saved mankind from a flood. In the story of Moses in the Bible, you can see, and I'll just use any one of these, Moses makes a bronze serpent and fastened it to a pole. If a person who had been bitten by a poisonous serpent looked to the serpent and he lived. Just like the caduceus, the entwined serpent is the sign for healing or medicine, the medical arts. Why did God tell him to make a bronze serpent and fasten it to a pole? Think about it. It's not rocket science, but I want to show you more. King James Bible, and God said unto Moses, and this is the English right here, and we're going to look at the Hebrew, and we're going to look at the Semitic. Semitic being Hebrew, but we're also going to look at the Akkadian, the more Eastern Semitic. I am that I am. And he said, you shall say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. So what is I am in Hebrew? Now I use this only for ease of telling the story because he would explain it to you a lot better than I could verbalizing it. So basically, when you pronounce the Akkadian Semitic Ea, and it was vocalized as such, Ea. So when Moses stood before the burning bush and asked the name of the God of the mountain, did God really reply, I am who I am? Which in Hebrew is Ea, Asher, Ea. This puzzling phrase has long perplexed many theologians. Here is our simple explanation. The voice of God simply replied, Ea, Asher, Ea. I am the one who is called Ea. That's why he says it right here. Tell them I am has sent me to you. Tell them Ea has sent me to you. So now you can see that the Sumerian deity Enki, aka Akkadian deity Ea, is one and the same as Yahweh. Yahweh is the one who told Moses to create the bronze snake and put it on a pole to heal the people who had been bitten by a snake. Clear, cut, and simple. Now, before you say that, well, wait a minute, Ea is not spelled the same as the Hebrew Ea. Well, Ea, the Akkadian, was a Semitic dialect, which was the Western Semitic, and the Hebrew Eastern Semitic spells it differently, just like you will see here. See, the Hebrew in the Bible, you will read that the plains of Shinar is the exact same equivalent as the Western Semitic Akkadian Sumeru, which we know today in our language as Sumeria. See, they have different spellings, Just imagine if this was Schumer. And that was actually, believe it or not, the original. It was actually changed. It never was Sumeria. It was actually Shumeria, and this is the closest here. And you could tell that just because they have different spellings, they mean exactly the same thing. Sumeria, Sumeria. That's why you see Ia and Iya. But they're both one and the same. So I don't know what much more I can tell you. All I can tell you is that I was where you were at. I was a Christian. I did believe. I stepped away from all of it and did my own thorough research. Now, do you want to know about Jesus? I don't have much by way of evidence to prove to you exactly who Jesus was. But I do have something that'll get you thinking about what exactly was going on there in Jesus' time, his presence, and maybe it'll give you an idea sort of what was going on. The story of Adapa, the very first of the 7 stages according to the Sumerian tablets, this Adapa, the first sage, he was given the name of Oannes by the 3rd century historian Berosus. And we get down here to the role of Adapa. He was a mortal man from a godly lineage, a son of Ea. This parallel story in the Bible to Adapa is the story of Adam and Eve, expelled from the garden and was not given the tree of life, so he pretty much refused immortality, or was refused immortality. Now, it's important that we look at Berosus's name for this Adapa character. Oannes was the name given by the Babylonian writer Berosus in the 3rd century to a mythical being who taught mankind wisdom. Berosus describes Oannes as having the body of a fish, but underneath the figure of a man, which is pretty interesting. Underneath. There's other stories that go along the line that Oannes seemed to be in some kind of fish attire, and he had 2 heads where he could take one head off and he had a head underneath, which leads me to believe that it was some kind of swimming gear, which lead me to believe that possibly these were some beings that weren't actually really fish, but were representative of the capability of coming from the sea. He is described as dwelling in the Persian Gulf and rising out of the waters in the daytime and furnishing mankind, instructing and writing the arts and various sciences. Oannes and the Semitic god Dagon were considered identical. That's in question here, so I'm not fully agreeing on that statement, but let's keep going. The name Oannes was once conjectured to be derived from the ancient Babylonian god Ea, but it is now known that the name is the Greek form of the Babylonian Uana, or Yuan, a name used for Adapa in text from the library of Ashurbanipal. Okay, now according to the Akkadian story of the Apkallu, they are the 7 Sumerian sages, demigods, who are said to have been created by the god Enki, Akkadian Ea, to establish culture and give civilization to mankind. Same story as the Sumerian, but only a different name, Apkallu. And they're, according to the myth, amphibious half-fish, we already covered that. I believe that it was some kind of swimming attire stuff. Half-human creatures who emerge from the oceans to live with early human beings and teach them the arts. Same story as you saw in the Sumerian tablets. Here it goes on, tells you Berosus claimed that Oannes, that first sage, and remember, I just showed you that they said that Oannes was, or Adapa was the son of Ea. Oannes, Adapa, same person. And describes him as a monster with 2 heads, the body of a fish, and human feet. Again, the 2 heads, that I believe is the whatever that apparatus is that was taken off his head and revealed his true identity under it. Now, what's interesting about this Oannes, or this fish man, if you will, and I can show you here, as seen in the Sumerian tablets, you can see that there's more than one in this looks like a fish costume. And if you look right here at the very top, it is in the very shape of the Pope's mitre. Very interesting right there. And it is speculated as such that that's exactly why the Pope's mitre is exactly in that shape. The whole story of the baptism of John the Baptist in the water, I do believe, is some kind of ritual to this Oannes. And the reason why I say this is because of the name John itself. Ioannis, Oannes. It has been speculated by some, and I don't have any definitive proof, that the name John comes from that Oannes itself. Now, what's interesting is that the Dogon, they have a mythological story. Well, it's not so mythological, but they tell of a legend of these nomos, these awful-looking beings who seem to dwell mostly in the sea but can live on land, and they were claimed that they were part fish, and also in the Popol Vuh. You will see right here, the fish people is written in the Popol Vuh, the Mayan Quechua book of the dawn of life, talking about they look like a person fish. Now, I know that's not much by way of evidence of who Jesus was, but that's the most that I can give you, because I don't want to lead you wrong. That's all I have. But now that we've talked about Oannes, that's going to lead us into now the Illuminati. Let's start talking about the Illuminati. The Illuminati, to me, seems to like to put a lot of their stuff in comic books. Dark Horse Comics out of New England, they have Hellboy here, and they talk about the Oannes Society. The Oannes Society was a splintered group of former members of the Heliopic Brotherhood that believed that the god Atum, now we just showed about Moses and about Moses being quite possibly the Pharaoh Akhenaten. And they claim here in Hellboy that believe that the god Atum originated from the seas. And if you go on reading right here, in the 19th century, the Oannes Society admitted this guy into their group during the sea. This era, the Oannes Society performed an arcane ritual concerning a cocoon containing a deity that led to Kyle's transformation into the Ichthyosapien. Yes, the fish god, or fish man. Right after Kyle's transformation, the Society believed him to be the embodiment of Oannes and kept him in a preservation tank. Apparently, the Society was somehow connected to President Abraham's assassination. See how they kind of weave a story of truth into fiction, just like Dan Brown did with the Da Vinci Code and the Angels and Demons. They seem to be doing the exact same thing in comic books, and I'm going to just give you a little bit to prove that to you. In the Spider-Man story, they have a fictional secret society, as they claim, that exists in the Marvel Comics universe, and it's a Spider Society. It is featured in the Spider-Man titles and more prominently in Arana, Heart of the Spider. The Sisterhood of the Wasp, the Hunters, are part of a bloodline. Going to say here that WebCorp, based at 200 Manhattan, New York, is a front for the Spider Society. It is a shell company inside another shell company, inside an offshore private company incorporated in Brazil, blah, blah, blah. So they weave, like I said, they weave truth into a fiction. Now, I told you that earlier in another video that I believed that the Spider-Man comic right here, where he says, Spider-Man says, hey, if you get to be on my cover, can I be on the dollar bill? This appears to be some kind of factions. Illuminati is just one faction of a secret society. There are quite a few others which we're going to point out here. And so Spider-Man appears to be Obama's favorite. And it appears by Spider-Man saying this is that he wants to replace the owl on the $1 bill. Now, we've already covered about the Owl Society, the Illuminati, claiming that the U.S. Belongs to them, and they do that through song videos and stuff like that. Now, his trip, there are many instances where it shows that there's a Spider-Man or a spider reference all around Obama. I could show you many pictures. I already showed you in the other video. I'm not going to go through all that. But what I find interesting is this lady right here at Stonehenge is this lady right here. And here's her kid right here, and he's got the Spider-Man. And she's in a bee costume, right? Now, I don't have much evidence that I could find if there was some kind of a secret spider society through the Spider-Man comic book mention, or the fact that the kid with the spider T-shirt showed up at Stonehenge and his mom being a bee. But what I did find is there appears to be on eBay something that has to do with a medieval secret society spider bee life death cult ceremonial ritual. I don't know if this even relates. I don't even know. But I know I did find it weird how that this somehow could be connected with that very fact. Before we get into the different factions that exist out there as far as secret societies, Illuminati, and such, just to show you, they like to include their facts into their fictions, the comic books. The Illuminati, a group of comic book superheroes, first mentioned, mention here their history in the New Avengers Illuminati, May 2006. In Batman, Night of the Owls, Batman, obviously, well, we already covered H.P. Lovecraft. They incorporated Arkham Asylum into the Batman story, and I showed you a picture how I believe that H.P. Lovecraft was in fact morphed into Ryan Lanza to create the Adam Lanza persona. As you can see, it looks exactly like him, mouth, everything. Even the nose right here, see this right here? It was made to look just like him, morphed into Adam Lanza. This is going to become important later, as I'll show you. Now, the story behind the comic book, The Court of Owls, it's a secret organization centuries old with immense power and influence embedded into the very architecture history of Gotham City. So where is Gotham City really? Considering that Arkham Asylum, and we've seen that it was Sandy Hook was incorporated into the Dark Knight Rises movie, and a huge owl references all throughout Connecticut, which I'm going to show you. I do believe that Connecticut is our answer. Yale University goes as far as to tell you that they have owls on almost every one of their buildings. The owls of symbols of enlightenment can be found perched amidst the architectural details of many Yale buildings. We know that Yale played a pretty huge role in the Sandy Hook event. The Yale Record, some kind of news humor magazine, the old owl is their mascot, dating back from the right here 1872. Disney would incorporate owls into their cartoons, as you can see here. Now, what I find interesting, at a gate at Central Park, Bethesda, they have an owl, and there is also a bat right here behind him. And is that meaning that the owl is more pronounced than the bat, meaning that he's more superior? Could be, I don't know, but we're going to find some very interesting details coming up. Now, the latest fire that we just seen from the Woolworth Mansion. Does anybody know that Woolworths was one of the only U.S.-based businesses that was operating in Nazi Germany during World War II? Now, what is interesting is the Woolworth Mansion is not the same as the Woolworth Building. But on the Woolworth Building, you will see that there is an owl here. So, was the Woolworth Mansion burnt down as a sort of warning to the Owl Society? Could be, I don't know. This owl right here happens to be on the Merritt Parkway Bridge in Fairfield County, Connecticut. This Owl Society right here, called the Order of the Owls, was founded out of Indiana in 1909. You can see the picture here. That Order of the Owls right there, they had their headquarters in Indiana, and moved in the 1920s, or no, excuse me, in 1960s, they moved to Hartford, Connecticut. Very interesting. So let's move along to the octopus faction of the secret societies. And you saw at the London Games. Now remember, this is, let's keep this into with London, England. And you see they have the pyramids here, and they have the Phoenix Rising. But what else was at the London Game? Batman was at the London Games. And an octopus. Now, looking up octopus secret societies, I found some very interesting references to the infinity symbol and the infinity reference here. Let's take a look at the octopus here. So there is an octopus secret society called the Very Secret Order of Creatives member handbook. Now you're going to see a lot of references to Octus is right there. You have the tentacles reaching around a globe, and it has the sideways 8 representing infinity. Octus Solutions. Infinity. Remember that. Again, octopus. Infinity. Another one. Octopus Infinity. Octopus Infinity wrap dresses. Octus is also included in the Marvel comics for some reason. But he plays in Marvel comics, I believe, is one faction working through comics, one faction of a secret society working through comics to tell you stories. And it just so happens that Octus happens to be the enemy of the main group of the Transformers. And so that falls in line with that Batman is enemies with the Secret Order, or the Owl Society. Even Disney seems to have jumped on the bandwagon with Disney Infinity, Dr. Octopus. Even in the British story of 007, the Spectra used the octopus symbol for the movie, referencing octopus and Spectra. So, as I showed you, there was an octopus presented in the London Olympics. You're seeing references here that's in Europe or Great Britain about these octopus. I'm showing you many references. Now, what I find interesting is now we're looking at the number 8, Infinity, number 8, and Spider-Man happens to be the arachnid, that 8-legged spider, and Serco happens to be a corporation that is spinning its web all over the world. The 8-legged spider. Very interesting there. A cartoon from the late 1800s depicted England as an octopus reaching its tentacles out all around the world, just like Serco appears to be doing here. You see it's reaching all around Egypt, India, Canada, so on and so forth. The tentacles of the secret society of England. These cufflinks here kind of remind me of something that I saw with the Priory of Sion. See, it kind of reminded me of this right here, this representing Sybil. And this was looks forward to the future, the age of Aquarius, bringing with it the return of Christ and the role of Christ. Here, the octopus spider. Doesn't it look like an octopus spider? So are the different secret society factions at war with each other? I think the Illuminati card game is actually just that. It's a secret society superpower frickin' war amongst each other that we're not seeing, that we're not privy to, but they tell you about it through their fictions, revealing truth in fictions. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean about this. The Secret World is a massively multiplayer online role-playing video game. Okay? Now keep your eye very closely on what they're saying here. The game uses borrowing heavily from the horror fiction genre and folklore, with a H.P. Lovecraftian New England for the novice player, mummies and cultists in Egypt for the mid-level player, werewolves and vampires in Transylvania for the high level player. The Secret World character starts the game by joining one of three factions: Illuminati, Templar, or Dragon. You remember the White Dragon Society? You remember how they're like trying to put a stop to whatever the Illuminati has planned? Very interesting, isn't it? Templar also. Three factions pitted against each other. That is exactly a duplicate of the Illuminati New World Order card game. Remember, we just talked about the H.P. Lovecraftian, right? So where did this Stephen Jackson Games get his idea from? The Illuminatus trilogy. Very interesting. Read that. If you haven't read it, listen to it on YouTube. You can listen to it being read to you. Even though it is very quirky type fiction, there is a lot of factual evidence of what's going on in that story. All you have to do is weed through it and pick it out, and you will find it, and you will be amazed. The cards in this New World Order Illuminati card game, including Illuminati plots, groups, places, personalities, resources, and New World Order cards. The various cards are printed with two differently colored backs and are collectively referred to as simply groups and plots. The premise is that you play one of the Illuminati groups: the Adepts of Hermes, the Bavarian Illuminati, the Bermuda Triangle, the Discordian Society, the Gnomes of Zurich. What's interesting is they're using real societies here. You know, like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, but he just uses a different name. The Bavarian Illuminati, he uses their real name. There are Gnomes of Zurich. All you have to do is look it up. It's going to take me too much time to divert away from what I want to show you here. But look up the Gnomes of Zurich. Real shit. Bent on world domination. Factions battling each other for world domination. Servants of Cthulhu. This is what I want to show you, because this is going to take us right the fuck into Sandy Hook. Believe it or not. Now, I just showed you the London Olympics had the octopus. Who was there with the octopus? Batman. Who is Batman in war with? Yes, the Secret Owl Society, or the Owls of the Illuminati. They're telling you these facts through the fictions. All you have to do is open your eyes to see it. I'm going to point out to you, H.P. Lovecraft. So you're telling me the Illuminati card game is using this storyline of H.P. Lovecraft into the frickin' the Illuminati card game? Very interesting. But yet, you just saw that H.P. Lovecraft, the Batman story Arkham Asylum, incorporates H.P. Lovecraft into their storyline. So was H.P. Lovecraft somebody who was in the know? Was he somebody who knew something? That's what we're looking to find out, and that's where we're going to go. Here is the imagery of this deity, Cthulhu. The octopus. He has an octopus face, right? Created by H.P. Lovecraft. Right here, but there's something else that he did too. Hold on here a second. Now, remember we already discussed about Oannes, about these fish people or whatever that Ea created to divest this civilization to mankind. Kind of interesting story, right? Well, H.P. Lovecraft, in his story about the Cthulhu mythos, is very interesting. Lovecraft has a cult following that revolves around his Cthulhu mythos, which is defined by a series of loosely connected stories that feature encounters with inhuman creatures such as horrible fishmen, faceless flying devils, and tentacled beasts, as well as semi-human cultists that worship mind-shattering deities like Cthulhu, Dagon, Asthathoth. So, very interesting, right? Well, watch. The narrator of At the Mountains of Madness, also notes that the Kitlahu spawn seem to have been composed of matter more widely different from that which we know that was the substance of the Antarctic Old Ones. They were able to undergo transformations and integrations impossible for their adversaries, and seem therefore to have originally come from even remote gulfs of cosmic space. The first sources of the other beings can only be guessed at with bated breath. The Old Ones might have invented a cosmic framework to account for their occasional defeats. Other stories have the Elder Thing's enemies repeat their cosmic framework. Yes! So you're seeing here that H.P. Lovecraft was somebody who was in the know. He's saying that these Old Ones reside in Antarctica. We've covered this in the last video. This battle between the Titans and the Olympic gods. He's incorporating it in his stories. All you have to do is sift it out and see it. In that At the Mountains of Madness, one of Lovecraft's most famous novellas, it follows an Antarctic expedition which encounters a sinister alien presence that may prefigure all life on Earth. Now remember, he wrote this in like 1922, in the early 1920s. This was way before any of these people in the Nazi Germany or just pre-Nazi Germany were even talking about Antarctic expeditions. Was this a known fact that there were somebody or some entity in Antarctica? And I do believe that this is incorporating information for you, well, not just for you, but incorporating truth into, and I just showed you about Hellboy and Oannes, right? They also incorporate this story in Hellboy. Right. Do you see they're telling you what's going on? All you have to do is open your eyes to see it. Now, was there one faction that infiltrated the Sandy Hook event and purposely, because you see Sandy Hook is being incorporated in The Dark Knight Rises, you see H.P. Lovecraft is morphed with Ryan Lanza to create the persona of Adam Lanza? Was the Octopus Society, as you see from the London Games, it's Batman is working in conjunction with this, whoever the Octopi is, whatever these secret factions are, did they infiltrate the Sandy Hook event? We saw that Anderson Cooper held up a owl symbol, the symbol of the owls. Was there an infiltration by whoever the other faction was to actually try to mess up their event for a reason? It could very well be. And I think you're seeing evidence of that right here. Before I wrap this up, I want to show you a couple TV shows here, just a couple of their little trailers here from an old one from the 1970s, and see if they were actually trying to tell you something. And then I'll show you another one that I found that was interesting also. Here.
Long ago, in a remote corner of the world, ancient astronauts landed from a distant planet with a gift for mankind, the Phoenix. For 1,000 years, he has waited, suspended in time. Now, he's awakened to complete his mission. He searches for his partner, Mira, for only she knows his ultimate assignment on Earth. Dependent on the sun for his strength and survival, endowed with a superior intelligence, he has fully developed the powers of the human mind. Relentlessly pursued by those who seek to control him, he must stay free.
Now, I'm going to show you something interesting from this TV show right here. Now, I don't know exactly if it means anything, but we'll take a look and I'll let you decide that after we're done looking at it here. Now watch this right here. You're going to see his girlfriend pull out, you see that right there? Whoa. She pulls out the phone right here and it says 10:06, 88, August 8th. So 10:06, something I found that was interesting here that I want to share with you here. Now I looked up different watches and how they display, 10:10. Here's another one, 10:10, 10:11, close. So basically you can see these watches that are demonstrated in magazines and everything, they stay on 10:10, right? Well, there was a little gold ring that resembled a watch that was pulled out of a dig in China. And as a matter of fact, it looks like it has the face of a watch. But what's interesting about that is that if this was like somebody had dropped it in there and doing their dig or whatever, and it says, look what time it's left on, 10:06, not 10:10. And as a matter of fact, Swiss was engraved on the back of the watch. Very interesting that the time does not resemble a demo watch. So why would they put 10:06 on this ring? I don't know. I just found that interesting. Now to the very last thing that I'm going to leave you with, going back to the infinity and the octopus, and we saw there is a lot of infinity references made all over the place. Disney starting to use infinity, the infinity dress, infinity octopus this, infinity that. Well, is infinity meaning anything? Well, let's take a look at what the Avengers have to say.
Legend tells us one thing, history another. But every now and then we find something that belongs to both.
There are relics that predate the universe itself. Ancient forces of infinite destruction.
You have no idea what you're dealing with. This is beyond you.
Why would you risk your life for this?
Because right now, life's giving us a chance. Whatever happens on Earth, that up there, that's the end game.
So, are they trying to tell you something through comics and through everything? God, I know all of that is a lot to take in, but we are going to move into about cloning, about the 0 Hour Titan and the cloning. What does it have to do with Sandy Hook, Connecticut, H.P. Lovecraft? That is the next piece in our series. All right, everybody, thanks.